Grant, that was amazing. Fantastic. I didn't know you could dance at the same time you're playing the organ. It's incredible. What a treat for us. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Bunny Oliver, and I'm appointed to welcome you all to worship this morning. If you are visiting with us today, we want you to know you are most warmly welcome to our worship. Even though it is virtual, we welcome you warmly. And we want you to know that no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you have a place here with us this morning. So welcome. We at First Congregational Church in Portland are awaiting our newly called, settled senior pastor. His name is Eric Elness, and he will begin with us in December. Until then, there are many people working together to continue to prepare and lead our weekly worship together. So everyone, welcome. And now it is our tradition to take a moment of silence, maybe some deep breaths if you wish, and simply try to practice the presence of God within us. I would invite you this morning, if you wish to take those breaths in, thinking, God be in my heart. And as you breathe out, God be in my understanding. And just breathe in and out a few times as we practice the presence of God among us. Amen. The Reverend Cameron Trimble is with us this morning, and Cameron will be bringing our message this morning. And she's also going to join me in the call to worship. The call to worship will be there for you in the chat, or if you have access to the entire bulletin that was sent out in this week, you have it there. So Cameron will be reading with you the dark print while I read the light print. In God's realm, weakness becomes strength.
Emptiness becomes complete.
Fear grows into courage.
The foolish learn wisdom.
The wise learn God's foolishness.
The great are humbled, and the humble are lifted up.
In God's steadfast love, all things are made whole.
We will worship the God of wisdom and truth.
And now let us sing before the Lord glad songs of thanksgiving.
Thank you. I couldn't unmute myself there for a moment. I'm about to read to you the ancient testimony from Micah 6:8. I think one of the most beloved passages there is. There are probably tens of thousands, if not millions, of words in commentary about this passage, more than there are in the passage itself. The people are asking God what it is that they can bring to him or her to please God. They want to know if they should bring rams or oil or even their sons. And God said to them, "He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God?" The word of God.
Oh my goodness, what a blessing that was this morning. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth and Cheryl and Grant, for that lovely, beautiful, beautiful music. Now it's time for a little conversation with the children. I think Miles is here, but I don't know if we have any other children with us this morning. Do we have any other children with us this morning?
Yeah, get over here and I'll do it.
Hello, hi. Here comes somebody. Okay, and you must, I hope you'll forgive me, but I don't know everyone's name yet. Maybe you could tell me what your name is.
I'm Thomas.
Hi, Thomas. I'm Bunny. We haven't really met formally yet, but I have seen you and I do recognize your face. So I get to talk to you for just, and Miles, somewhere there's Miles, just a little bit this morning. And I want to talk to you about this word. And you look to me like you might be able to read it. Let's see, can you see it? No, there it is. Can you see that word?
It's brave.
It is brave. That's right. That's right. So I would like to talk to you a little bit about being brave. So when you think about somebody who is really brave, does anybody come to mind?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Do you know anyone maybe you've read about, or maybe you've seen in a movie, or maybe you know in real life who you think is brave?
Who's brave?
Who's brave?
I know what brave is. Brave is when you do something, even if you're a little scared. It's kind of like courage.
That is absolutely perfect. Yes, that's right. That's right. You know, sometimes when people think about somebody who's brave, they might think of a character that, I don't know if you know this character, but he was famous when I was growing up. His name is Robin Hood. Robin Hood was very brave because he would do brave things by taking from rich people and giving to poor people. And he did so at risk of his own life, or maybe even getting put in jail or something like that. So Robin Hood was a very brave guy. And we have many stories in our lives that we learn about of brave people. I was curious when I was thinking about this, if there were any stories about brave children, because I think children can be brave. So I looked on the internet and I saw many stories about brave children. I even saw a story about a young girl who ran up to a burning building to catch a baby that was being thrown out of a window because her mother wanted to save the baby. And she did, and the young girl caught the baby and the baby was fine. So that was brave, wasn't it? But you know what? Bravery is sometimes not so big. Sometimes bravery is an everyday kind of thing. And so when I was thinking about this idea of being brave, I thought of an old little song. It's kind of a nursery rhyme song that I used to sing to my children, and now I sing to my grandchildren. Maybe somebody sang it to you. It's really for young children, but maybe you know it. And if you do, you can sing it with me if you want to. So it goes like this. Eensy weensy spider crawled up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. An eensy weensy spider crawled up the spout again. Yay! Now, Thomas, you do know that one, don't you? Well, I was thinking about this song and the story about the eensy weensy spider, and I thought, wow, that spider is brave. Because when the spider started crawling up the water spout, I don't think the spider was really necessarily afraid, but suddenly everything changed. Suddenly it started raining, and the rain pushed that little spider all the way down to the bottom of the water spout. Poor spider. But that spider, in the face of the rain, just waited until the sun came out again and dried up the rain. And then she started up again, and she went all the way up. I was thinking, why is she going up the water spout? Maybe her web is up there that she's building. Maybe she has a nest up there with her children. We don't really know why, but she needs to get up there. And she just waited until the sun came out and that rain was gone. And I think that was pretty brave of her. And she tried it again. And we think maybe she got there this time. Well, I like that little song, and my little grandchildren love that little song. And I think it has a message for us, because you know what? About 8 months ago, things changed for us too. Do you remember, maybe, Thomas and Miles? About 8 months ago, things changed for us. Suddenly, we had to wear masks. Suddenly, we had to wash our hands a whole lot more than we used to. And suddenly, some of us couldn't go to school anymore. We had to do school at home. And it was different for our parents too. They couldn't move around as much as they used to. They had to do things differently. And yet, everybody was brave. Everybody was brave. Mom and Dad kept on taking care of you, kept on feeding you and getting food for you. And your teachers kept on teaching you, although maybe in a different way over the internet. And you kept on too, playing and being a kid and doing the best you could with school. So everybody's been brave. Even our church has been brave. We didn't stop worshiping just because we couldn't go to our big, beautiful church. No, our leaders found a way for us to worship together like we are today. Now, pretty soon, I think the sun is going to come out for us. Yeah, pretty soon. We don't know how soon, but soon. The sun will come out for us and we can go back to our big, beautiful church and be together again. Pretty soon we'll be able to go back to school and go back to our places of work and go visit all of our friends and do all the things we like to do. Because you know what? God is with us. God has been with us all along, taking care of us, never forgetting us, never stopping to love us, and we haven't stopped loving each other either. We've all been carrying along bravely with God's help. Love helps us be brave, and that's why we've been able to be very brave, all of us. So thank you for having this little conversation with me this morning, Miles and Thomas. And let's keep being brave. Let's keep being brave until the sun comes out. Okay? Bye-bye. We have a song that I think the words of which are going to be up in the chat so we can sing together.
There we go. Now it's time for our modern testimony, another popular piece, meaningful to so many of us, from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. When love beckons to you, follow her, though her ways are hard and steep. And when her wings enfold you, yield to her, though the sword hidden among her pinions may wound you. And when she speaks to you, believe in her, though her voice may shatter your dreams, as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall she crucify you. Even as she is for your growth, so is she for your pruning. Even as she ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall she descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Amen.
Well, it is wonderful to be with you all today, and even more wonderful that I didn't have to get on an airplane to make it happen. So there's an upside of COVID. So I'm grateful for this time. And I cannot tell you all also how excited I am about your future and what is ahead. Eric Elness is a person that I've known for a long time. He is, you will soon experience if you haven't already, a man who can think at both, I would say 30,000 feet, but I think he's actually probably at 50,000 feet, but then also at 2,000 feet of altitude of creativity. He can inspire and implement, and I think you have every reason to be hopeful about what is ahead. Now, you'll notice I just started with an aviation metaphor, which I cannot help but do because I'm a pilot. So I want to start again also with a story of my first times flying. When I was a little girl, I would spend my weekends with my uncle, who was a World War II fighter pilot. And we would fly around the North Georgia mountains, which is where I'm based, in his Beechcraft Bonanza single engine airplane. We'd pull the plane out of the hangar and do the pre-flight inspection, and then I'd climb into the cockpit. And then I remember when I was probably 3 or 4 years old, I would climb up onto the wing, and then I'd settle into my seat next to him. And then I would see nothing actually, except the instrument panel. I was too small to see out of the windows or see anything else except the inside the cockpit. So my first experience of flying was entirely focused on learning about the instruments and feeling the way that the plane moved in the air, up and down and backwards and forwards. Actually never backwards. Backwards would have been very bad. But I was totally engrossed. And then I will never forget the day that I climbed into my usual seat, and then all of a sudden I had grown tall enough that I could just peek my eyes over the rim of the window. And oh my God, there was this huge, beautiful world out there. I had no idea that this world existed with these little houses and roads and mountains I didn't know it existed until that moment. So I was mesmerized by seeing this world that I thought I knew, this world that I had known from the ground, but now I'm seeing it from 3,000 feet, 6,000 feet, 12,000 feet in the air. And absolutely everything was different. Even more shocking to me, it had been there all along. It's just that I never knew. My first commercial flight was when I was 8 years old. We took a family vacation to Washington, D.C., and my eyes were plastered to the window for the first time in my life because I saw the world from 32,000 feet. The scale was huge. And it was the first time it occurred to me that we live on this magnificent, huge, beautiful planet with so much that's interconnected. Everything tied to everything else. Hills became mountains, and rivers became lakes, and farms became the Midwest. Well, today I'm a pilot of my own plane. It's a beautiful Cirrus that I take people up in and fly on adventures, hoping that they encounter the same kind of sense of awe and perspective that has shaped my life. I have flown a lot over the last many years. And over that time, the landscape has changed. There aren't as many trees. I have to now dodge cell towers everywhere we look, and there are more planes in the sky. But the sense of freedom and the scale of vision that it gives me has never failed to inspire me. Being a pilot has taught me endless lessons, but perhaps the most important one is this: that your capacity to dream has everything to do with your courage to expand your vision. You all are living through the changes that are happening to the mainline church in North America. Across the country, churches are shrinking. National denominational offices are caught in this cycle of endless restructuring in the noble but unattainable quest to do more with less. Seminaries are looking for new business models, and churches are having to ask very difficult and hard questions about sustainability and longevity, mission and relevancy. We're going to watch hundreds of churches close over the next many years, and we may even see the ending of some of our beloved denominations. Now, lest we think that this is personal, I need to also note that we're not alone in this systemic transition. I was, before COVID, many months ago, speaking at a fintech conference in Amsterdam, and I'll never forget, I'm in this room full of banking executives, and they're absolutely wringing their hands with worry about how this new technology was going to prevent them or stand in their way of recruiting young people into careers in traditional banking. So one guy said, I mean, literally quote, I don't know what's going to happen to all of our branches. How are we going to keep people coming into our branches for their banking needs? And so it's happening in every sector across our globalized life together. Our traditional infrastructures are fading and being replaced by ways of organizing and doing life together that meet certain modern needs and then leave others unmet. It's the way of institutions giving way to movements and then becoming institutions again. The ebb and flow of life, death, and life. So what will this mean for us? The passage from Micah this morning helps in that it boils it down to the essence of what our work is as church. Everything about our structures, rituals, patterns, leadership, buildings, bulletins, committees, pews, parking lots, endowments, sermons, programs, seminaries, everything is changing and will continue to change. But at the end of the day, to be Christian is to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. That's it. Jesus offers, though, a pro tip, and he says it's really better to do it in community with each other. In the verses just before and after this beloved one from Micah, we hear the prophet reminding people of two essential realities, which Bunny also reminded us of in the children's message. We remember that in the face of uncertainty, that God is with us. As the beautiful UCC affirmation of faith says, it says, hear the good news. God has loved you, loves you now, and will always love you. We are not alone. We are not abandoned. And the second thing we need to remember is that God never looked at creation and said, hey, that's great, and that's the way it's always going to be. Now, we might wish that life would just settle down, not change so rapidly, but in the face of the challenges of our globalized world, it means that we will have to continue to adapt. Revelation tells us God is doing a new thing. I personally wish God would take a break, because I have to tell you, I am finding this adventure at moments absolutely exhausting. I heard the story of a man who was observing a woman in the grocery store with her 3-year-old little girl in the basket as they were going through the store. And as they passed the cookie section, the little girl asked for cookies, and her mother said no. And so the little girl, of course, immediately begins to whine and fuss. And the mother says quietly, now, Monica, we just have half the aisles left to go, so don't be upset. It's not going to be long. And so then they come to the candy aisle and the little girl begins shouting for candy. And so when she learned that she would not be getting any candy, she began to cry. And the mother said, there, Monica, don't cry. Only 2 more aisles to go, and then we'll be checking out. When they got to the checkout stand, which was of course a circus of irresistible temptation, the little girl immediately begins to clamor for gum and then bursts into this horrible temper tantrum when she learns that there would be no gum being purchased that day. And the mother patiently said, Monica, we will be through this checkout stand in 5 minutes, and then you can go home and have a nice nap. So the man follows them out to the parking lot and stopped the woman to compliment her. He said, I couldn't help but noticing how patient you were with little Monica. And then the mother turns and looks at him and she said, no, I'm Monica. My little girl's name is Abby. You see, I just want to give us permission to be real about the price that we pay in this time of major human transition, especially in a time demanding greater activism as we move from a time of being organized to organizing religion. Many of us are struggling to stay the course. The grief is real, the anxiety is real, and the naps should be plentiful. But our grief doesn't excuse us from welcoming what is coming, for it could very well be better than we could have ever imagined. You see, seeing our emerging future is a matter of scale, of altitude. It's a measure of our courage. The writer William Gibson has said that the future's already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. Now, I could tell you a great deal about what we're seeing emerging across the nation, and we will have a chance in the future to do that. But here's what you need to know. The church has an essential role to play, now and in the future, as the weavers of the relational fabric of our communities. I may have told you this in the times I've been with you, but sociologist Margaret Wheatley was the one who helped me see this most clearly. After studying human behavior and emergence theory, she concluded that our world was functioning like a centrifuge. It's separating particles intended to be together, but separating them by the force of speed. She goes on to say that the crisis of our age with globalization and technology is that the relational fabric of our communities is being torn apart by the pace of development and the platforms that we have now built that we scarcely know how to use. So in the face of financial meltdown and climate breakdown and COVID lockdown and racial throwdown and now political letdown, we are losing ourselves and each other. We're creating a world where neighbors struggle to talk to one another, where parents struggle to connect with their kids. Even before COVID, our school systems were overwhelmed and fracturing. Our healthcare systems were underperforming and now today certainly overwhelmed. Our churches are closing. Many of the systems that once held us together in local communities are failing us. And their failure, we are becoming more and more disoriented and radicalized and afraid. And when we're afraid, we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable to narratives that make us scapegoat other people. It's the immigrant's fault that I don't feel safe and secure. It's the gay's fault that my family isn't close and my church is dying. It's women's fault that I didn't get that job that I deserved. It's Black people's fault that we have so much crime. In our act of scapegoating, of blaming other people, we create even more distance. We become violent. We become hate-filled. And we abandon the very best of our humanity. And we become more and more isolated. You see, we're being torn apart because we are separated and separating from ourselves, from our neighbors, and our communities. It's our relationships that make us whole. And that's how God designed us. Now, maybe, just maybe, COVID has given us a chance to change that. Perhaps this time of forced cloistering, of rooting in place, is awakening us to the new ways our lives were not working for us or for the planet. But what plays in my mind is, what if the church could actually accelerate that change? I mean, what if the single most important mission before us is to take responsibility for the reweaving of the relational fabric of our communities? And what if that was all we did? Like, what if we did that? Then it begs the question, what kind of institutions and infrastructure are needed to make that possible? What could we let go of to lighten our load for what's ahead? Do we need so many sanctuaries? You need to keep yours. Yours is pretty. But is Sunday morning the most effective way to connect people to one another and to God? Does Sunday school lead to more loving people? Now, each congregation will have infinite questions to answer, and they'll have to answer them for themselves. But my hope is we now have more freedom to respond to that challenge creatively than ever before. One of my favorite modern philosophers is a woman named Jean Houston. She is remarkable in many ways, but when I heard her give her a lecture a few years ago, I'll never forget what she named as the great challenge of our age. She said, "We must reclaim our task as spiritual beings to embrace the inward journey of wisdom, for we now have the technological capacity to destroy ourselves without the wisdom to know not to do so." You see, there's something very real at stake in our ability to expand our vision of our calling, to call forth the courage to embrace it, and to let go of what no longer serves our mission. What does the Lord require of us but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with our God? A few months ago, I had my first engine failure. I was at 6,000 feet and I was alone in the airplane. I cannot tell you how eerie it is to be flying along thinking everything's just fine, and then you hear your engine sputter, and then all of a sudden you hear nothing. So my training immediately kicked in, and I established what is called best glide slope, which is the glide slope that allows me to fly the plane the longest distance for as long as possible without any thrust, while I figured out what to do. And so then the next step in your checklist is that you look for the best place to land. Now, luckily in the United States, there are airports like everywhere you look. And so there happened to be an airport about 4 miles over to my left. So then I had to make my emergency call to the air traffic controllers. I said, "Mayday, full engine failure, one soul on board, 32 gallons of fuel, making an emergency landing at Cherokee County Airport." It was the most trying experience that I have ever had in the air. Now, when a pilot makes a call like that, there is this kind of existential moment. There's this moment of silence where every pilot that's listening on the radio and every traffic controller that's heard that call, it's almost like a silent salute, because there, but by the grace of God, goes any of us. And then after that pause, the traffic controller comes over the radio and he said to me, "I'm here with you. What do you need?" As it turns out, those were only the 2 sentences that I needed to hear. Because he was telling me, 1, I'm here. You're not alone. And 2, you're going to do something that you have never done before. You're going to do a new thing, and I'll do everything I can to support you. The adage in aviation that as long as you have altitude and ideas, you'll be okay. And in this case, I had both. And so do you. Now, I will tell you that I did make it to the airfield. I came in a little bit too high, and so I had to do a slip landing where you do ailerons to the right and opposite rudder, and you lose altitude suddenly. But I placed that airplane on the ground, and I I'm happy to tell you it was the best landing of my entire aviation career. And then I changed my pants afterwards when I got out. It was an extraordinary experience that taught me how very valuable and precious this one wild and precious life is, as is yours. You know, I recently published a book that's called Piloting Church. You might notice the theme. And I close the final chapter with my sense of what's happening in the church. And I'd like to read you that chapter as my closing comments this morning. I said, I'm convinced that a new kind of Christianity and a new kind of church as its earthly expression is emerging in our midst. This new Christianity relies far less on structure and institution. It is a raw spiritual expression of a living, boundless God. This new Christianity is a faith on the move, moving from being an organized religion to an organizing religion. This new Christianity is kind, generous, brave, and always on the side of the oppressed. It is not theologically agnostic or vague about what it stands for. It supports women's rights and LGBT rights. It welcomes immigrants, values collaboration, seeks love in all of its forms, and is reclaiming the ancient spiritual practices that help deepen our souls. I am convinced that this new kind of Christianity is at a tipping point. We face the reality that it will either be a growing movement that reclaims an ancient faith for the common good of all, or it will become a fringe movement with two distinct factions: the progressives, who don't matter at all, and the extremists who will terrorize us all. The choice is ours. See you in the skies, friends. It is time to take flight. Amen.
Take hold of my own dream.
Thank you so much. Slumdog Scratch Band. That was beautiful, just beautiful. We come now to a time of sharing a bit of prayer. And I would like to begin with a celebration. Avina Ward writes this morning that they welcomed into their family her new grandson, Amos Arthur Stromwick. He was born on Friday evening about 8 o'clock. His parents are Coco and Jesse, and they certainly are no longer alone. Experiencing the presence of a newborn is a full life indeed. So congratulations to Jessie and Coco, and of course to Avina and her husband on this wonderful, exciting event. We have many concerns in our church for prayer, and there is a list that I want to refer you to just as a reminder in the this week publication that comes in your inbox. So please visit that and keep those folks in prayer. But I will list a couple here. Heidi Levy has been diagnosed with uterine cancer and is in need of our prayer and support. And Catherine Brumbaugh has fractured her hip. So this morning we pray for healing for these two folks, Heidi and Catherine. We also lift many other prayers, and I would like to invite us to take a moment of personal silence at this point to remember those concerns that are closest to us. Let's pray together. Gracious, loving God, we ask your healing presence today for Heidi and for Catherine, who are both in need of that healing presence. Along with them, we are aware that there are many in our church who need that healing in their lives, and so we commend them to you as well. Oh God, as we enter a colder season of this year, we pray your presence with those who have little or no shelter. And in these trying times, we pray for those who are hungry or have no work to bring them dignity. We pray for our country in a time of radical transition. We pray that by your grace and by, that transition might smooth out, and that we as a country and as a people may enter into a time of communal healing. And now would you join me please in our unison prayer that is printed in your bulletin or hopefully in the chat. Let us pray. God of change, God of glory, God of our past and future, through all of the excitement and terror of transition, may we be always becoming a people who do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with you and one another. And now let us turn to share the prayer that Jesus taught us, saying, Our Father, Mother, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Morning, church. I have some announcements. The first announcement is that council will hold a closed budget meeting this Tuesday, the 17th at 6 o'clock. A regular council meeting will start at 7 p.m. We hope you can join us then. Number two, due to the governor's pause recommendation, the church office in the main building will be closed until November 30th. If you have any questions or you need access to the building, please contact Kara in the office. Number three, because we're unable to gather during the season of Advent to light the Advent candles in the sanctuary, we'd like to create a special time on the first Sunday of Advent, which is the 29th, 2 weeks from today, for families to light their first Advent candle. You are invited to create an Advent wreath or a Yule log with whatever materials you have so that we can all light our Advent candles each week during the season of Advent. Our incoming senior minister, Reverend Eric, has created a video, which you've seen in the This Week bulletin or announcement, demonstrating how to make the Yule log. Feel free to be as creative as the Spirit moves you. We recognize that there are families or individuals who may need support gathering supplies or creating their wreath or their log. If you are unable to make it and you would like to have one or some supplies for making one, please contact Sarah Vasquez or Margaret Baldwin with your request. And their emails, again, are in the This Week bulletin. All right, next Sunday, we will have a special guest speaker, Herb Montgomery. Herb is an activist, speaker, and a director of Renewed Heart Ministries. And Herb will be joining us from his home in West Virginia to talk about the work of transforming communities of exclusion in the early church and today. Herb is a tireless and persistent voice for equity in the heart of Trump country, and you won't want to miss what he has to share about transformation and the church. Thank you.
My name is Bill Kunitz. I'm a member of both the stewardship team and the financial oversight committee. And I often feel schizophrenic at this time of year when I think about pledging. See, I'm acutely aware of the considerable financial challenges that this congregation faces and probably look more closely at the budget than many of you do. Now, that's not a criticism by any means. It's just a fact of looking monthly at meetings of the income and expense that the church has. So when I think of my own personal pledging to the church, it's sometimes difficult for me to separate my understanding of the dollars needed to fund our ministries and the true basis of my decision of how much I should pledge. But then I draw on the personal theology that I began to develop many years ago when I was in seminary. And it goes something like this. Stewardship is more than making sure the church budget gets funded. Stewardship is about a relationship that I have and cultivate with God, a relationship that believes that everything I have is a gift from God and not exclusively mine. Recognizing this, it is my privilege, my responsibility as a steward to share with others the bounty of what I have been given in this life, to glorify God, not necessarily to balance the budget, but hopefully we will glorify God with a balanced budget. Now, before you get serious about your pledge intention, I want you to consider the encouragement from the following short video that our new pastor, Dr. Eric Elnes, has put together, recorded just a few days ago. Listen to what he has to say about pledging.
Greetings, First Congregational United Church of Christ. I'm Eric Elnes. The stewardship team was gracious enough to invite me to offer a word or two about my own understanding of stewardship. I don't see stewardship the way a lot of people do. A lot of churches, they give to a budget. They say our budget is so much money and we need to raise this much. But I think that in my path, personally, giving has nothing to do with what the church needs. It has everything to do with what I need. I have an intrinsic need to channel my gratitude for all of the blessings that I continually receive. The stewardship theme couldn't be better this year. For such a time as this, we're all on quite an adventure in our world today. It's going to take a lot of adventurous souls who are able to meet all kinds of scary and terrifying situations and push through them to the point where their activity produces them joy. Stewardship is just one more piece of a basic orientation we have towards life. We push through discomfort into joy, and we know that's where we ought to be. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hear a few words from me. I can't wait to be with you, and take care, and God bless.
So as we move towards next Sunday, which some call Pledge Sunday, some call Intention Sunday, and as you think about the gifts that we receive and what you have to offer God, I really hope that you will do so with conviction, with enthusiasm, with hope in the future, and trust. As you know, pledges and gifts can be made to the church in a number of different ways: on our website, through your local church as a withdrawal on a monthly basis from your checking account, even the old-fashioned way of sending checks, which is good. So join me now in a moment of reflection and perhaps rededication as we acknowledge our present and future intentions to financially support our church with our morning offering. We are grateful for all the gifts that you bring to the ministry that we share. God bless you and thank you.
Sisters and brothers, our worship has ended, but now our service begins. Go forth from this time, for you are the body of Christ, and so the whole world awaits you. So live passionately, love faithfully, and celebrate every moment from now until the finale, for the God of relentless grace goes with you.